Welcome to Mexico Unexplained, where we will explore the magic, the mysteries, and the miracles of Mexico. This series presents information based partly on theory and conjecture. The podcaster's purpose is to suggest some possible explanation, but not necessarily the only ones to the subjects we will examine. Here is your host, Robert Bitto.
Welcome and muy bienvenidos to episode number 414 of Mexico Unexplained, where we examine the magic, the mysteries, and the miracles of Mexico. I'm your host, Robert Bitto. In addition to the magic, the mysteries, and the miracles, on Mexico Unexplained, we thrive on examining the enigmatic, the haunting, and the unresolved. And few stories embody these qualities as starkly as the 2013 kidnapping and massacre of the musical group Combo Colombia. This chilling case, set against the backdrop of Mexico's brutal drug war, not only shocked the nation, but also highlighted a possible perilous intersection of art, culture, and organized crime. On January 25, 2013, 18 members of the band Combo Colombia were abducted after a performance in Hidalgo, Nuevo León, in an act that would leave 17 dead, their bodies discarded in a well, and one lone survivor to tell the tale. This episode delves into the details of the case, exploring the band's rise, the circumstances of their disappearance, the investigation's findings, possible theories as to who and why, and the broader implications for musicians and society in Mexico's ongoing struggle with violence. Combo Colombia was a rising star in the vibrant music scene of Monterrey, Nuevo León, a city known for its cultural richness and proximity to the U.S. border. Formed around 2010, the band specialized in a type of music called vallenato, a Colombian folk music style characterized by accordion-driven melodies and romantic, heartfelt lyrics. Unlike the narco corridos, songs glorifying drug lords that often courted danger, Combo Colombia's repertoire focused on love and joy, with titles of songs like Only You Make Me Happy. The group, composed mostly of local musicians from Monterrey's working-class neighborhoods, had built a loyal following over 3 years through relentless gigging and appearances on regional television shows. Their colorful band T-shirts and energetic performances, featuring a full ensemble of accordion, congas, drums, horns, guitars, and keyboards, made them a staple in Monterrey's nightlife. Despite their modest fame, many music critics and fans alike believe that Combo Colombia was on the cusp of a breakthrough. They were preparing to record their first studio album, a milestone for a band that had yet to secure a major label deal. Their fan base, particularly in the Independencia neighborhood, a hub for Colombian music in Mexico, celebrated their authenticity and accessibility. Most members were Mexican except for their keyboardist, who was a Colombian with Mexican residency. However, their growing popularity inadvertently placed them in the crosshairs of a region plagued by cartel violence, where even cultural figures were not immune to the possible fallouts of the drug war. On the evening of January 24, 2013, Combo Colombia was hired to perform at a private party at La Carrera, a bar and event space in Hidalgo, Nuevo León, about 25 miles north of Monterrey. The venue, located in the Potrero Chico area, was a typical setting for private gigs, often attended by locals and, unbeknownst to many performers, occasionally by figures tied to organized crime. The event that January evening was modest, with around 50 guests, and the band played their usual set of upbeat vallenato tunes. As the night progressed, the atmosphere was reportedly festive, with no immediate signs of danger. In the wee hours of the morning, the mood shifted dramatically. According to reports, at least 10 armed men arriving in a convoy of up to 14 trucks stormed La Carrera at around 4 a.m. The gunmen, described as heavily armed and organized, interrupted the performance and ordered the 18 band members and crew to leave with them. The group, comprising 12 musicians and 6 staff, including a sound engineer and assistants, was blindfolded and forced into vehicles. It's important to note that none of the 50 partygoers were harmed, suggesting the attack was targeted specifically at Combo Colombia. The band's vehicles were left abandoned, doors open, with beer and whiskey bottles strewn about, a haunting scene discovered by relatives who grew alarmed when the musicians stopped answering their phones. One band member, whose identity remains protected to this day, managed to escape, though details of how he evaded his captors are conflicting. According to Nuevo León state security spokesman Jorge Domene, the survivor reached a nearby rancho and alerted authorities, providing critical testimony that would later guide investigators to the grim discovery. The escapee recounted a harrowing ordeal. The group was driven on dirt roads, still blindfolded, to a remote location. There, the assailants interrogated the band members before executing them one by one, shooting them in the head and dumping their bodies into a well near Las Estacas Ranch in Mina, Coahuila, about 19 miles from the abduction site. By January 26th, relatives of the band members had filed missing persons reports after failing to make contact with their loved ones. When they visited La Carreta, they found only the abandoned vehicles, heightening fears of foul play. The survivors' testimony led authorities to a well on January 27th, where they began recovering bodies. By January 30th, 17 bodies were pulled from the 45-foot deep, 2-foot wide well, each with gunshot wounds to the head, some described as bearing signs of torture, though police investigators denied these claims. Of the 17, 14 were identified as Combo Colombia members, including a vocalist, saxophone player, and the Colombian keyboardist, with the remaining 3 being crew members. The 18th abducted member was the survivor, and no additional bodies were found, thus concluding the grim recovery process. The investigation, led by Nuevo León's Attorney General's office and the Special Kidnapping Unit, quickly pointed to organized crime. The region, a hotspot for turf wars between the Gulf Cartel and Los Zetas, was no stranger to violence. Authorities speculated that the massacre was a retaliatory act, possibly by Los Zetas, who believed Combo Colombia had performed at venues or events linked to their rivals, the Gulf Cartel. The band had played at bars like Sabino Gordo, previously attacked by the Gulf Cartel in 2011, killing 21 people, and possibly at private events tied to criminal organizations. One hypothesis suggested the Zetas allowed the survivor to escape deliberately to send a message, amplifying the crime's impact and pressuring federal intervention in the region. In February 2013, authorities arrested Edgar Alberto de la Garza Trevino, an alleged Zetas member, for acting as a lookout during the kidnapping, though he was not directly involved in the murders. The investigation stalled thereafter, with no further arrests reported by 2025. Domene emphasized the attack was direct, not random, but the precise motive, whether vengeance, mistaken identity, or a warning to others, remains unclear. The lack of progress reflects Mexico's broader impunity crisis, with over 95% of crimes unsolved, leaving families and fans with little closure. Some more fringe investigators in Mexico believe that the cartel theory is just an attempt by the authorities to make this tragedy an open and shut case with a simplistic explanation that the public would swallow. Unlike other musicians whose executions can be tied directly to the cartels, Combo Colombia did not sing the songs celebrating the drug kingpins or glorifying drug-related violence. Combo Colombia, concentrating on mainly love ballads and upbeat pop songs, was on the rise and had played many private parties of the elites of northern Mexico, and not just of those possibly associated with the drug cartels. Some say that the executions of the band members were more ritualistic and may have been tied somehow to the occult. Did band members experience or see something they shouldn't have at one of their private events at the home of a Mexican billionaire? Instead of the usual drug cartel explanation for extreme violence, could there be a more profound occult or even demonic reason for the brutal kidnapping and murders of the band? Those going with the mainstream explanation argue that the Combo Colombia massacre was not an isolated incident, but part of a disturbing pattern targeting musicians in Mexico's drug war, which has claimed over 70,000 lives since 2006. While narco-corrido singers, who glorify drug traffickers, have historically been prime targets, Combo Colombia's focus on romantic vallenato music made their targeting surprising. However, as Elijah Wald, author of Narco-Corrido, A Journey into the Music of Drugs, Guns, and Guerrillas, noted, musicians often perform at private parties hosted by cartel figures, regardless of their genre, due to lucrative fees. These private parties are euphemisms for events tied to organized crime, where refusing an invitation or playing for the wrong group can prove fatal. The band's performances at venues associated with the Zetas, such as bars in Monterrey's Independencia neighborhood, may have inadvertently aligned them with one cartel in the eyes of another. A family member reported prior threats to some band members, though no direct links to criminal activity were confirmed. The massacre underscored the precarious position of regional musicians who, as Mexican concert promoter Sergio Islas explained, face exploitation and danger in an industry affected by cartel influence from recording to live performances. Journalist Francisco Guamea highlighted the power imbalance. Musicians must play until told to stop or risk deadly consequences. The massacre sent shockwaves through Mexico, drawing national and international attention as the first major mass killing under President Enrique Peña Nieto, who had taken office in December 2012, promising to curb violence throughout Mexico. Mourners gathered in Monterrey for a funeral procession, accompanied by fellow musicians playing vallenato in tribute. Maria Sagrario Sáenz, mother of percussionist Ricardo Alfonso, publicly rejected claims her son was connected in any way to the drug trade, emphasizing his dedication to music. A mass was held for the victims and fans mourned on social media, sharing videos of Combo Colombia's performances, which took on a bittersweet resonance. The official story highlighted the vulnerability of cultural figures in Mexico's drug war, where even those uninvolved in criminality can become collateral damage. It also exposed the government's struggle to address cartel violence, with Nuevo León, a key battleground for the Gulf Zetas conflict, remaining a hotspot. The lack of arrests beyond De la Garza Treviño and the absence of a clear motive fueled speculation, with some suggesting the killings were meant to heat up the plaza, a tactic to provoke federal intervention and weaken rivals. The survivors' protected status and limited public details further shrouded the case in mystery. Of course, as previously mentioned, there are some who believe that the drug cartel connection is either an erroneous explanation or a deliberate smokescreen to hide a darker and more nefarious motive for the killings, involving Mexico's elite billionaire class and possible connections to the demonic or something else. The Combo Colombia kidnapping and massacre remain one of Mexico's most haunting unsolved cases. The loss of 17 young men whose only crime seems to have been sharing their music underscores the indiscriminate nature of violence in Mexico and the challenges of seeking justice in a country where seeking justice is often difficult. As Mexico grapples with over 115,000 disappearances, the memory of Combo Colombia endures, their final notes a call for answers that may never come. Thank you once again for listening to another episode of Mexico Unexplained. Remember to like and subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on X and TikTok. Tell your friends by sharing these shows with others. Please go to our website, MexicoUnexplained.com, for references, illustrations, and for free access to transcripts of past shows. Please visit Amazon.com to purchase the books Mexico Unexplained, Mexican Monsters, and Mexican Miracles to get hard copies of the magic, the mysteries, and the miracles of Mexico. We appreciate your kind attention once again. Until next time, thank you and gracias.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Mexico Unexplained with host Robert Bitto. For show summary, relevant links and commentary, please check out our website at mexicounexplained.com. Like us on Facebook and be a part of the conversation. Adios and hasta la vista.